Nightclub promoting, my experiences in nightlife. David Jaffe with beststockstrategy.com, and in this video I'm going to tell you why I believe everyone should be involved in nightlife. When I started working as an investment banker, I thought that I would be attractive to other women. However, the problem is that women did not care that I was working as an investment banker or that I was willing to make the personal sacrifices to make over $100,000 when I was 21 years old. Plus, I was cheap and I was living in New York City and I didn't want to spend $200 on a dinner, or I didn't want to spend $20 on a drink in order to act like everything is perfect so that I could have the hope of hooking up and having sex with a girl. So when I was working as an investment banker, my first job was in industrial growth and services. I then worked there for 10 months, but I told HR that I wanted to quit unless they moved me to a different group. They then moved me to financial restructuring, where instead of working until midnight or 1 a.m. in the morning, I was able to work until 5 p.m. So I was getting paid the same amount. And during those 9 to 5 work hours in the financial restructuring group, this was in CIBC World Markets, it was headed by Joe Radecki, there was just simply not much work to do. So I started looking at alternate ways to make money and to supplement my income. I decided to get into nightclub promoting, and it took off. The way that I was able to build up my business very quickly was I would go to a club and then I would walk up to 100 people and I would ask them for their email address. In fact, I would tell them, "Hi, I'm a promoter. I think you're pretty. May I have your email address? I'd like you to come out to my events." Of the 100 people that I would walk up to during the course of a night, I would walk up to 80 attractive girls, and I would walk up to 20 guys who were at a table who were buying bottles. So again, I would ignore all the guys who were walking around the club, and the only valuable people in my eyes in that nightclub would be the attractive girls and the guys who bought bottles. And like I said, I would walk up to the girls and say, "Hey, I'm a promoter. I think you're cute. May I have your email address? I'd like you to come out to my events." They would then ask me, "Where do you promote?" I would tell them where I would. I would give them my card to establish credibility. And around 80% of these girls would give me their email addresses. The interesting thing is that the energy that you exude definitely impacts your success rate. There would be times where I would feel really good and I could walk up to 50 girls and I would not be rejected once. Literally, I had girls be like, "Yeah, sure, take my email." And then they would offer, they'd be like, "Hey, take my phone number." The weird thing is that I didn't really want phone numbers because it took me a decent amount of time to text them. The only people that I would ask for their numbers is if I was interested in the girl sexually. So if I thought she was like really pretty, and this maybe happened to around 20% of the girls that I would approach, I would get their number and then I would just text message them if I wanted to hang out with them personally. So as far as the guys are concerned who buy bottles, I would walk up to them and I'd say, "Hey, did you buy bottles?" And then they would say, "Yes." And then I would say, "Here's my card. I promoted some of the best clubs in New York City. If you book your table through me, I will comp you a bottle the next time you buy." And it was so easy for me to comp them a bottle because the clubs get like the comp bottles of champagne or the house champagne or things like that, which pretty much they get them for free as like add-ins, or they cost them like $5 or $10 per bottle. But in a nightclub, they could sell that same bottle for around $300. So if this person is willing to spend around $400 for a bottle of Grey Goose, it's really nothing for me to email the club and say, "Hey, make sure that you comp them a bottle of champagne." And on top of that, that person who's getting the comped bottle of champagne is actually tipping out the waitress around a $40 to $60 gratuity. So nothing is free, but even a comped bottle of champagne, which probably costs the nightclub around $5, that person is actually paying $50 or $60 to the waitress, and that's improving the morale of the staff because the staff is making money. At my heyday, I was probably generating around $20,000 on $20,000 or $30,000 on a Saturday and around $15,000 to $20,000 on a Friday. It was very common for me to book and to send around 20 to sell 20 to 25 bottles on a Saturday night, and I would also bring out around a few hundred people. And all of this I was doing while I was working as an investment banker, and I only went out once or twice a night. The only reason I was able to do this is because I was able to aggregate a list. So every single time I would go out, I would set a goal. This is how many emails that I want. And then I would walk up to girls and say, hey, I'm a promoter. I think you're pretty. May I have your email? I'd like you to come out to my events. Give them the card, establish credibility. Sometimes the girl would seem a little bit dubious. She would tell me things like, oh, last time I gave my email to a promoter, I couldn't get off his email list. Or last time I gave my number to a promoter, he would keep texting me and he would bother me a lot. And the best way that I found that you deal with this is you look her straight in the face and say, I'm not hitting on you. And I'd say, I do the best events in New York City. I'm not hitting on you. Yes, yes, no, no. So you take their objections and then you answer them. Like, you just want to make it clear that this is a business transaction and that you are not hitting on them. One of the great aspects of nightlife is that you have elevated social status. You become like a celebrity. You become a sports star. It was so easy for me to sleep with women. And oftentimes the women would throw themselves at me. And there would be times when I would have like 10 girls standing around a table, and we would just be like very friendly. I wasn't like dancing with them. I wasn't touching them or anything like that. But it was pretty common that I would have hooked up with a large percentage of those women. And the fact is that when you have very high social status, it just becomes really easy. Like, you don't put forth any effort. The other major thing is the money. I was making around $5,000 every single week as a nightclub promoter. And this was substantially more money that I was making as an investment banker. So it got to a point where I had to ask myself, is it even worthwhile to work as an investment banker to be treated like shit when I'm making $5,000 a week for going out and getting paid to sleep with very attractive models? It just didn't really make sense to me why people would subject themselves to make around $150,000 as a second-year analyst in investment banking, get treated like crap by their superiors or by their senior bankers, when you could make substantially more and have more fun by working in nightlife. The problem is that people are very bad at self-regulation, and they also tend to have a large amount of self-destructive tendencies. In nightlife, there's a large amount of alcohol and drugs involved in that industry. And I can't even tell you how many times I saw people overdose or people were given cocaine. Thankfully, I am extremely OCD. I have never done cocaine. I've never even smoked marijuana, and I've never been drunk. So when the nightclubs would give me the drink tickets and the bottle tickets, I would use them as currency to improve my business and to exceed expectations and to grow my business. But what a lot of other promoters did is they would drink those bottles themselves, or they would give them to their friends. For me, I would never do that. I would give those bottle tickets out to customers who would buy, let's say like they would buy 3 bottles. I would comp them a 4th because I would give them one of my own bottle tickets. And I can tell you that unfortunately, I could have slept with a lot more girls if I gave them cocaine, but I just didn't want to get involved in any of that stuff. I thought it was like very disgusting. I was very OCD. I just was very careful. I never wanted to get involved in like the drug scene or the alcohol scene. I've never been drunk, and I don't regret it at all, because you always want to make good decisions and have good habits. And the fact that you're respectful at all times to women, that you don't ever delve into drugs, so that you don't medicate yourself with alcohol or utilize it as a coping mechanism or as a social lubricant. Those are habits that have served me extremely well. To always be respectful to women, to never do drugs or to never get drunk. And actually now I don't even drink alcohol at all. But there are a lot of deleterious and harmful effects of nightlife. In fact, I remember a few girlfriends, like one of the girlfriends, her name was Rebecca Marks, Rebecca Marks. She was very, very beautiful. And she died of a drug overdose. And I think she was only 19 years old. I actually met her at a club, and she was stunning. And she just gave me her email address, and then we became friends. But she actually was in that scene. That's one of the problems when you're in that scene at a very young age. So when I first met her, when she was in the club, she was like dressed down because she was like really young. She probably felt uncomfortable because she shouldn't have been there. But then when I saw her around 2 or 3 months before she died, I remember seeing her at the Maritime Hotel when she was like 19 years old, and she was wearing like 5-inch heels, and she looked like Cinderella. She was super, super beautiful. And then I found out just a few months later that she had overdosed on cocaine. I probably at that time hadn't spoken to her in about 4 or 5 months. In fact, I remember seeing her at the Maritime, and I just like, gave her a hug and like a little bit of a kiss. And then she asked me like how I was doing, and I just didn't, she just, I knew that she was like struggling with drugs, and I tried to help her with it. And, maybe I gave up too soon. Actually, I remember like when I heard that she had overdosed, and I like started crying, because she was like a really, really good person. That's very tough. She was a really, really good person. She had a great heart, and she just made a bad decision. And that's one of the pitfalls of nightlife. Yeah, that stings a little bit. She was a really good person. But as far as like, I do definitely recommend that everyone get involved in nightlife, because it allows you to grow your own business. It allows you to get over any social anxiety that you're feeling. And perhaps most importantly, which is something that I didn't know at the time, it provides you with an enormous opportunity to make a lot of money, and also a great networking opportunity to meet new people. In fact, some of my closest friends right now are people that I met in nightlife. One of my really close friends, he's a very, very prominent lawyer in Manhattan. Even though I live in Miami, I still talk to him probably 2 times a month. In fact, he's working on a private equity deal where he's raising funds, and I was able to help him with some contacts there. But he's one of my oldest friends that I met in New York City. The friends that I met like the earliest when I first moved there, and him and I are very close. But nightlife is a great opportunity for you to meet new people. What I would recommend if you have interest in getting into nightlife is you would just type in your city name and type in promoters, and then you would ask to work with them. You would be a sub-promoter, or alternatively, you can work directly with the nightclubs. But as a new entrant in nightlife promoting, I would highly recommend that you work under an established promoter, because no club is going to work with you directly when they're uncertain how you're going to produce. And in the beginning, you're not going to bring that many people out. Maybe you'll bring out like 4 or 5. Getting over the initial hump and earning the respect of the doormen and earning the respect of the nightclub and making sure that your numbers are accurate and that your people are treated well is the biggest hurdle that you have to overcome. Once you start bringing out around 20 people and the club starts seeing you consistently and they respect you, it becomes much easier for you to leverage and ramp up from bringing out 20 people to bringing out 50. But starting from 0 and bringing out 0, and then ramping up from 0 to bringing out 10 people consistently is very difficult, because you're going to value every person, and the doorman is not going to show you respect, and the doorman is going to not give your people any preferential treatment. And also, if you bring out 20 people, the doorman's going to tell you that he's going to bring out that you only brought out 10, and you're probably going to need around 15 people minimum in order to get paid. So in the beginning, it's very treacherous. One final story is the doorman. So I was friendly with a lot of the doormen, but the doormen are not going to treat your people that well, because remember that each club is a brand. The clubs make money by enticing lawyers, investment bankers, celebrities, and athletes to spend thousands of dollars on bottles. And the reason why those people spend $5,000 on a table or $10,000 on a table is because those nightclubs attract very attractive women. So that's why they call it models and bottles. So by the nightclub aggregating and attracting models, then the men, in order to gain access to those incredibly attractive women, have to pay for their entry by buying overpriced bottles. So a man would walk in with like 3 guys, and the doorman will tell them that there's a $3,000 table minimum. And then the club will be filled with models from like Wilhelmina, Elite, Ford, etc. The guys will pay those $3,000 in order to have access to those women. And the club is a brand. So this goes back to what I was saying, where it's the doorman's job to safeguard the club's reputation. If you're a nightclub promoter and what you're called like an image promoter, or even if you're someone who generates revenue, because there really are like two types of promoters. They're like the promoters who focus on bringing out only models, and then there are promoters who focus more so on generating revenue. I mostly focused on generating revenue because I would have a lot of attractive girls, but the problem is that I couldn't compete with the image promoters because I worked full-time as an investment banker, and a lot of these image promoters would give these models like cocaine, they would give them Adderall, they would give them opioids, they would bring these girls out shopping because they would get paid sometimes $50 to $100 for every model that they brought out. So they could afford to spend on average around $50 and bring these girls out. Like let's say the girl would go out with them for like a month, and they would go out with them like 3 times a week. So then that would mean that this person would generate over $1,000 for this one girl. So then the promoter would spend $500 on a shopping spree, and then the promoter would bring them out to free dinners. There's also like model housing or promoter housing, where a girl can go to New York City and she could stay in an apartment in Manhattan for free as long as she agrees to go out with the promoter for for like 3 times a week. I know that Mark Bao, I think he worked at Provocateur, and actually I think he worked at Deutsche Bank, so he worked in finance as well, and he used to have this like model houses and things of that nature, and then they would bring those girls out to the nightclubs. But going back to what I was talking about with the doorman, if you're bringing out unattractive fat girls, the doorman is not going to let that girl in. And I remember a situation where I was at Kane, and this was a doorman who used to work at Lavo, and I don't know where he's working now, but he's actually like a really, really nice guy. Right in front of my face, and this wasn't a girl that I brought, but a girl tried to get in, and he looked her in her eye, and he said, "You're fat, get off my line." And she was almost crying. Like, he looked her dead in her face and said, "You're fat, get off my line." And I asked him after she left, I said, why'd you do that? You hurt her. And his response was, David, I don't intend or don't want to hurt her, but I don't ever want her to come back on my line. Let me repeat that. He said, my intention was not to hurt her, but I don't ever want her to come back on my line. And remember that the club is a brand. The club is a business. When you have when you're bringing unattractive women to your nightclub, then that negatively impacts the perception and the brand of that club. If you have investment bankers who are driving by and they see a group of three fat girls on that line, they are not going to go in. If you have 3 celebrities, they are not going to go in. So that's why when he told me that he doesn't ever want that girl to come back, it made sense to me and I understood. And I was just really shocked that he was so rude to that girl, because he has always been incredibly nice to me. As far as the hierarchy of what's most desirable to the nightclub, it would go bottle buyers here. Well, actually, it would go celebrities here, celebrities first, then bottle buyers. Then slightly under the bottle buyers will be models, so like very attractive girls. Then you would have regular people here, like a big step down, and then then fat girls would be on the bottom. So you would have, again, and this is true, I'm sorry if I'm being very crude, but you'd have celebrities up top, then you'd have a big step down, you'd have bottle buyers, then a small step down, you'd have models. Then a big step down, you would have regular people, like guys and girls who buy their own drinks and who are willing to spend $20 for a cocktail. And then way below that, you would have fat girls. And that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Leave a comment below. When you leave a comment, it really helps the engagement rates for the YouTube algorithm. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. And I read everybody's comments, and I respond to everyone's comments, and I appreciate your attention.